Happy first day of Indy 500 practice, everyone. I'm Kyle Benjamin, co-host of the Overcut, alongside my good friend Christopher DeHart, who is actually at IMS right now in one of the podcast recording rooms. The window over Terre Haute has closed for the day.
We got like 25 minutes of running here today. It was not it was not good. Um, just the sad thing is I had something I had to take care of at the apartment and I wanted to get over here a lot sooner. I got over here after the rain had already been coming down. But the good news though, I was able to get to the bullpen, see some people, talk to some people, and ask a lot of very important questions. Good news though is they actually have extended tomorrow's running, or I should say Wednesday's running, because I'm probably going to upload this maybe late Tuesday. I don't know. Anyway, I digress. They're going to actually open up Monday's running or Wednesday's running. Wow, I'm not doing well today. Uh,
It is Tuesday.
yes, it is
Lemon,
Tuesday.
it's Wednesday.
Yes, so Wednesday is when they're gonna do practice again. 10 a.m. is when they've decided to start instead of at noon, because Wednesday, Thursday, Friday was supposed to be at noon, and they're gonna start Wednesday at 10 o'clock. Sad thing is there's supposed to be a lot of other weather coming in, maybe Thursday, Friday, so not looking too good. But as for the weather, or as for the practice running for Tuesday, there was less than a half hour of running total. Though, in fact, out of 29 drivers, there were 219 laps total turned. Three drivers turned 13 laps. A couple of drivers turned one lap, just installation laps. And other than that, I mean, not really.
Not much going on. And we're having
Yeah.
some technical difficulties. Chris, you froze up like a Honda engine.
Oh, crap. Um,
Not a good week for the H brand during the Jeep Miso GP. Two engine failures, which is almost unheard of for HRC, a brand certainly known for their reliability. I know when we did content work for them, that was the one thing we hammered home all the time, that legendary Honda fuel mileage and reliability. But a lot of teams changing engines before 500. Some will try to mileage that out during this week and swap in a new engine for qualifying and the race. There's a ton going on in IndyCar right now. We've had news drop this morning. Hybrid making its debut at Mid-Ohio should be, I mean, great track anyway. Throw that into the mix. I think you're going to have a really fun weekend in Steam Corners, Ohio. So if you've never been, get out there. Team Penske solidifying their engineering timing stand lineup for the 500 is the kind of fallout from their push to pass shenanigans continues to unroll. But Will Power getting John Bushlock back on the stand, who was his engineer when he won in 2018. As he's affectionately known, Myron in the paddock. Great guy, was part of the Team Penske sports car program when they ran the Acura DPIs a couple years ago. And now he's back with the Willie P. So I think that makes Will certainly a strong contender for the 500 again. One thing I wanted to throw your way as we talk through all these things. Will Power, second, runner-up finish on Saturday.
Yep.
Not much he could do to contend with a Polu Masterclass again. I think the 10 car is certainly an early championship contender. Kid's in his fourth season.
Fifth actually.
Fifth season. Oh golly, yeah, I guess so. 2020 he would have been with Coin.
Yep.
Wow. But 10 wins so far in a championship. I know time flies. The before times during the pandemic, it just all kind of blends together. But I think Will Power is making a very strong case to be a championship contender before the season is over. Now, it's still plenty early, and there's a lot of racing left to be run. But he Scotty Mac's win at Barber aside, Will's been the most consistent Team Penske driver this year.
Second, 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 sixth are his four finishes this year. I don't know about you, but if you finish in second place in 75% of the races in a championship, there's not many other ways to lose this championship. You know what I mean? Of
Yeah.
course, Pelot is 12 points ahead of him right now in points. He has a first, a third, a fourth, and a fifth, which that's still really good too. In
And
fact,
Pelot
Pelot,
traditionally doesn't end. He doesn't end. Doesn't finish his races outside the top 10. When he won the championship, I don't think he had a finish lower than eighth, if memory serves.
he had an eighth place finish at St. Petersburg, and he had another eighth place finish. I want to say it was at the first Iowa race because I know in one of the Iowa races he finished third, and the other Iowa race he finished like eighth. Um, but I digress. Pelot has finished in the top 10 in every race since the last time he finished outside the top 10, if my memory is correct, is when he was taken out at Gateway in 2022, which is mind blowing. But like just looking at the results this year, I'll go over this just briefly, real quick. Pelot's the only driver to finish in the top five in every single race. Uh, Power is the only other driver that's been in the top 10 every single race besides Colton Herta and Felix Rosenquist. Wow, that's actually really impressive from Felix. Which
The 60
Felix
car is
is,
sneaky good.
yeah, Felix, yeah, he's fifth in points. He's 45 points behind Pelot. Yeah, dude's good. Dude's really good. But I
Front
digress.
Rosenquist.
Not Rosenquist. Oh God. I need to write that down actually. That's really good because when I
I,
have a
you
few
know,
friends of mine that hate my puns, they're gonna kick my butt on this one.
I've tried. I've suggested that to my friends over at Sunday Group a couple times of like, you might want to, trot this one out in a press release, some social media post. Um, Matt and crew over there at Sunday Group handle all the social media and PR for Meyer Shank Racing, and they didn't particularly like what I was providing for free. But then again, when it's free, what do you expect? But
They're good people though. They are good people.
they're wonderful, just absolutely fantastic over there. Curious to see what Rosenquist does with the 60 this month. He's good at IMS. He's generally quite fast. Elio doing the drive for five. Meyer Shank, they have won there before. They bring good cars. So curious to see what the 60 can do.
I will
Blomqvist's
say this
first trip.
from what I've heard real quick. I think if my memory is correct, Castro Neves is in a brand new car for the 500. Blomqvist actually is going to be running Castro Neves's victory car from 2021.
Interesting. I'm surprised that's not cast in bronze and in the Meyer Shank shop there in Ohio. But Delara chassis being a little hard to come by. The tub is a hot commodity in IndyCar, so I can kind of understand why you bring, a car that has been proven to be quite fast back to the track. Although, if it were me and money were no object, I think that would be in behind glass somewhere for all to see. I know they've got a couple other big time moment cars from Mike's career there at the shop. So some kid named Kyle Larson turned laps today. I think
He
we'll
turned
probably
a
hear his
handful of
name
laps.
off and on throughout the remaining days of the month. Very curious to see how well he fares. He's certainly got, what do you say about Kyle Larson? Like, he's fast in everything. Big question I think there is, what's Errol McLaren gonna bring to the table? Are they
Larson
gonna?
only turned two laps, so he's going
Yeah,
to be fine. He only turned two laps. Um, Rossi was 19th. Ilott was 11th. Pato was fourth. Oh, we should probably mention that too. Theo Pourchaire is in the sixth car now for the rest of the season, except for the Indy 500, which is going to be Callum Ilott in that car because of the more fallout from the David Malukas test mountain biking incident, where his left wrist is still on the mend. So because he missed a certain number of race events, he was in breach of contracts. So McLaren took the opportunity to basically say thanks, but no thanks, David. And they went with Theo Pourchaire for the rest of the year, except for the 500, which, as I said again, Callum Ilot's going to be driving the car, which good for Callum Ilott. Happy to have him see him get another crack at it, especially with a team as well run as McLaren has been at the 500. Felix in the same car last year sat on the front row. Pato last year had a shot to win, and Rossi finished solidly in the top 10. So I expect the team to do really well this year.
For sure. Hopefully they can rebound, awards win at St. Pete aside. They've struggled. They haven't really been the contender. I think a lot of people expected them to be this year. Had some issues during the GP on Saturday.
Oh
Um,
God.
Awards radio, not necessarily a Ryan Blaney-esque meltdown on the radio, but he had some thoughts about their strategy. And those guys were kind of a non-factor. Again,
The I'll put the right way to put this. While it is true that nobody likes, someone who complains a lot, in this situation, I believe Ward's frustrations were warranted. To put it bluntly, the rest of the field on the last stint of the race were all on the red sidewall Firestone option tires, except for Pato O'Ward and Rinus VK, who Rinus had a couple of technical difficulties earlier in the race. So it didn't matter if he was on the prime or the option tires. The option tires, for those who might be listening to this for the first time, the prime tires have less grip, but they last longer. The alternate tires give more grip, but they don't last as long. In IndyCar mandates you have to run both sets for at least 2 laps in a race. Anyway, I've got the Firestone live timing tracker here. Pato is the only driver on the lead lap for the last 19 laps of the race on the black sidewall tires. And that was his biggest complaint. And quite frankly, it was warranted because it was not the right decision.
were they hoping
Heck,
for a late yellow?
well, so here's the thing. There was a late yellow. They pitted 5 laps before the yellow for Luca Giotto's stalled car. But like they already ran the black sidewall primaries earlier in the race. I don't know if they just ran out of tires and they just have one more set left over because everybody else has at least 2 stints on used alternates, except for the drivers that didn't go on to Q2 or Q3, and they had a second set of new alternates to use. Like Scott Dixon, for example, he finished fourth. He's the first driver on the leaderboard that ran the new alternates twice because he had the second set available because he didn't make it out of the first qualifying round. Um, yeah, and Pato was complaining that he felt like he had no power, that he was getting smoked on the straights, but the timing stand basically said they didn't find anything out of the ordinary, and they had the same top speed as Alex Rossi, and I believe it was like either Newgarden or McLaughlin who was running near him most of the day. So I guess they just have more data to look over, but yeah, Pato was not happy during the race, and he finished 13th. So yeah, after starting fifth, you expect to finish in the top five, and it was just not a good day for the young Mexican racer.
No, certainly not. And there's a program that you mentioned. We've talked about it a couple times already since we've been doing this show together. They've got to find victory lane. They have a former championship contender in Rossi, multi-race winner, Indy 500 champion, awards won races. He's shown what he could do. I think everybody was looking forward to see what David Malukas could do in that car with those resources. Now we're getting Theo Pourchaire. Um, I think it's time for McLaren to step up and prove that they belong in the conversation with your Ganassi, Penske, and Andretti teams. And I know that's certainly where they want to be. That's what they aspire to. But for me right now, they're just a team that has cars in the paddock and they're kind of in the conversation, and sometimes they bring chaos to the table. They've got three talented drivers. To put it bluntly, it's kind of time to put up or shut up, because their management also does have a tendency to comment on issues uh, that bring themselves to light in the sport, um, and usually throw some barbs towards fellow team owners. So
Let's just put it bluntly here. You talk about finding success. Pato's win at St. Petersburg after disqualifications is the only thing keeping him in the championship fight as long as it has been going right now. After the win at St. Pete, you have a 16th at Long Beach with a penalty for hitting Rossi and going into the fountain, 23rd at Barber after hitting everything but the lottery, and then 13th at the Indy GP with bad strategy. Rossi is 10 points behind in the championship, but has a sixth, an eighth, and a 10th at St. Pete, the Indy GP, and at Long Beach. His only bad race, Barber, when the left rear tire fell off after a pit stop. The number 6 car being a hodgepodge of Cal Milot and Theo Pourchaire, 2 11ths, a 22nd, and a 19th. It's further down the standings. But Rossi being the, for lack of a better term, most consistent driver over the first quarter of the season, a lot of us thought it would be Pato. And yes, Pato is higher in the standings. But if you look at the overall results, Rossi's been it. He's been
yeah,
great.
just has to find his way to victory lane.
100% agree on that. Last thing I want to touch on the GP before we head out to testing at IMS. Andretti Global, sorry, almost said Andretti Autosport, put another dollar in the swear jar there. Colton Herta, he ran out of fuel in qualifying. He started 24th. By the end of the second corner, he was in 16th. 8 seconds later, Marcus Ericsson braked way too late into turn number 4, hit him. Herta went through the gravel trap. 45 seconds later, he finished the first lap in 25th spot. And on the results page here, he finished 7th, thanks to doing a couple of undercuts to get around cars in front of him, doing some very fast laps, and then settling in. At the first stop, he went from 20th to 12th. After the second stop, he was in 9th place, and he got 7th spot after passing the stalled car of Luca Ghiotto and then passing Alexander Rossi with about 15 laps to go. Colton Herta made the best out of a bad situation. He went into the race as the points leader. He exited the race 4th in points, but given where he started, this was a banner day for Colton Herta.
For sure. I mean, amazing recovery, and a testament to that entire team and the talent of the guy behind the wheel, to not melt down, I guess, after such an egregious faux pas in the qualifying. Um, you got to account for that decimal point, I guess, when doing your fuel count. I don't think I've ever seen that before for a team to run out of fuel during. I mean, I know you run the absolute bare minimum of Sunoco fuel in those cars that you can to now I say that I'm not entirely sure it's Sunoco. It's VP Racing Fuel, isn't it?
It is Sunoco, actually. No, it's Shell. Shell.
That's right. It is Shell.
It is
It is
Shell.
Shell. It was VP for a while. Now it's Shell due to the Penske Entertainment ownership B2B partnership.
There was a very famous case of a driver running out of fuel in qualifying, actually. Someone posted the clip on Twitter not too long ago. 2011 Indy 500 qualifying, Fast 9 shootout, Dario Franchitti out of fuel on the start of his 4th lap.
Ooh.
And they posted the radio message appeared, or not appeared, but was transmitted over the broadcast. They said, yeah, we got you. We ran you out of fuel. And then Bob Jenkins just, oh my goodness, which you can imagine him saying that because that's just something that just doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
Um,
You know how
no,
much how much fuel you burn. Teams do a lot of sim work, a lot of math is involved in engineering these cars. And, when you practice, you get a good read on your fuel burn. Um, weather conditions could have changed from the time they practiced. They could have mistimed something, a lot of things go on there, but a rare mistake, not just for Andretti Global, but for, anyone in the paddock to do that. So good to see Colton bounce back. Would like to see a solid 500 out of him. His rookie year, 2019. I don't think he actually turned a lap that year. His
He retired on
car,
like lap 6,
they had fuel
gearbox.
pickup issues, substitute gearbox. They had
Yeah.
powertrain problems with that car early in the season that year. And I know I'm going way back in the archives, but that was the last 500 I attended in person. So um, fresh in mind, but it'll good to see him. Kyle Kirkwood certainly will be fast. Marcus Ericsson, 8,500 champion. And Andretti always puts a massive emphasis on this race. It's super important to the family. And don't forget, Marco will be running again. Would be awesome to see Marco run well. This is a race that has, and pick your theory, has eluded the Andretti family for decades. And it would be good to see Marco put a solid performance, represent the ARCA paddock well and run
You
well in the 8,500.
represent the archipelago. Okay, that's funny. That is funny. Um, this to use a sports car reference, um, the Andretti family, with the exception of, I'm talking about just as drivers, after Mario won in 1969, the Andretti family to this race are kind of like Bob Wallach to the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Mhm.
He ran there so many years. He finished second several times, but he could never quite pull off the overall win, despite being a great driver throughout his era in sports car racing. Um, let's just hope that they don't meet an untimely demise like Bob did, which, spoiler alert, he actually was riding his bicycle at Sebring back in 2001, and I think the story goes, an elderly driver struck him, and the injuries were fatal. As for Marco, speaking of which, he was actually second fastest in Tuesday's limited running at the Speedway. So that at least is good for him. Of course, I say that they had less than 30 minutes. It'll be less or fewer. They had
We'll
less
go
than
with
30
less.
minutes of
Yeah.
running. Yeah, we'll go with less. Well, they had less than 30 minutes of running because of bad weather. The start was delayed. They actually canceled the 2-hour break they were going to have for lunch. Um, it just, they had to get everything that they could in, and unfortunately, it just didn't work out for them that they could actually run that much. By the way, I figure just to go over another storyline, Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing last year did not have a good time at Indianapolis.
They did not.
Takuma Sato was third. He's running in the fourth car for Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing. He was third fastest. Christian Lundgaard was fifth fastest. Um, while Graham Rahal and Pietro Fittipaldi were 24th and 25th respectively. Graham only had 6 laps. Pietro had 4 laps. You can't really take too much out of timing results for today.
No,
It's
the weather
mostly
was its
just
own thing. A lot of teams shake down, install, make sure everything's all buttoned up. And there's, not a ton of practice between now and qualifying, which is happening in a few days.
correct. There's just Wednesday, Thursday. You have Fast Friday, which is when the turbocharger pressure boost gets turned up a little
Crank
bit
that boost to
for
11 and let her eat.
yes. But there's supposed to be weather on Friday, so we don't know how much running is going to be available for people to run with. So there's a lot that has to be unpacked. They might even run earlier on Saturday. There are a lot of variables that only time will tell what will take place.
Worst case scenario, though, and knock on wood. Uh, if for whatever reason qualifying gets rained out, it's the weather across the country doesn't look awesome this week from, Texas to Maine. Uh, who's the odd car out? 34 cars entered by Catherine Legg.
No, I don't think Catherine Legg is the odd car out because I think she's actually decent. I Part of me says Nolan Siegel
Yeah,
because he does not have that much super speedway experience. Christian Rasmussen will be fine. We could make an argument for Canapino. Um,
yeah, that
I
depends
don't think it,
on how well Juncos Hollander has their speedway cars buttoned up this year. They struggled last year having those cars stationed up, but Canapino actually ran well until he had a shunt towards the end of the race. Wasn't really his doing, but involved in one of those pileups.
as much as I would love to say Stingray Rob, because quite frankly, that team has not been pointing in the right direction. The AJ Foyt Racing team has a technical alliance with Team Penske. And I think after Rahal Letterman Lanigan's struggles last season, that they've completely overhauled a lot to get on the right track. Um, I'm gonna early make my pick of Nolan Siegel as being the odd car out. If the qualifying weekend does have a lot of rain, I think they're gonna try and run everything on Monday. But to go back to the scheduling situation, that is one thing that I asked Graham Rahal about inside of the media availability that we all had at the bullpen. Graham would actually like to see the schedule be expanded for the month of May, because there are a lot of rain days that are taking place this week, possibly. Um, while the setup sheets should not be too different from what they've all had over the last several years, sometimes the newer drivers and newer teams could always use more practice. And there are some days where you could just say, okay, cars that have already qualified, if you push qualifying over 2 weekends instead of having the time we have now, just say, hey, if you qualified on the first weekend, don't show up. We're not going to let you in. So don't, have the session be available to just those that are not in the show, have everybody else not that's already in the show take the day off, saves everyone the time and money of running. So yeah, that was one thing I asked Aaron about. Hey, expand the schedule. But then again, what was it, third or fourth wheel in racing? Try not to spend other people's money.
Right. Yeah.
So
You
I
make
can't
a
make that
small
call.
fortune in racing by starting with a big fortune in racing.
Yeah, I can't make that call.
Right.
That is a Roger Penske Entertainment call. But it is something that is worth looking at sometime in the near future, maybe 2025, 2026, or maybe when they have the new cars in, which we don't know when that's going to be.
Yeah. And do you expand practice next year if the hybrid becomes a full season thing, which certainly I know that's everybody's goal is to make the hybrid a full, that's the direction they're heading in with the engine formula. You could move the April test days into May, slide your Indy GP up a week. And then you've got basically 3 weeks of oval activity, full week of practice, couple of days of practice qualifying, and then your Indy 500 festivities. You could do that. There's also the rookie test much earlier in the year. You could combine some of those dates certainly and expand the month of May to give teams the chance to run more, especially those drivers who don't get a ton of seat time. Your one-off entries, your partial schedule guys. I think it could be done. Now, as a race fan, I enjoy watching cars go around in circles, and watching cars go around in circles at Indianapolis Motor Speedway is special, regardless of the scenario or time of year. So, I kind of like the April test days. It's a fun way to break up sort of the monotony of the early season schedule woes where we're, a couple weeks between races. So remains to be seen,
These,
but more practice is never a bad thing.
I said they used to have the open test back in March, a long, long time ago. And while I would say more practice isn't a bad thing, in some forms of racing, it can be a bad thing. Like I've been to the Snowball Derby. I went there back in 2015. Yeah, you
Yeah.
don't need 4 days of practice for that. But when it comes to like the Indy 500, you want the practice. When it comes to Le Mans, you want the practice. When it comes to Daytona, they don't get practice. So yeah, they need practice. When it comes to any top tier racing series, you're going to want more practice. But some top tier events don't necessarily require a lot of practice. Like I mentioned, the Derby, you don't need a lot of practice for that. You can easily cut 2 days off of the practice schedule there, and that's no problem. Although my memory is correct, I think the track owner is also the Hoosier Tire
Yeah, they do
distributors.
they do burn through a number of tires down there at Five
That's how
Flags.
they that's how they justify it.
Yeah.
Do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
We'll have to get our
Once
buddy
every other
Matt
turn.
Weaver on to chat with us about the Snowball Derby at some point. So I know that is an event that
Yeah,
is near and dear to his heart.
it's a fun race. That's a fun race. I want to go back there one day, but with the current job situation, I don't see that ever actually happening. Um, but then again, all right, so we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here. So let's just go over real quick, because we are getting into Indy 500 practice. I do want to at least draw the curtain 100% down on the Indy GP. Just go over the top 10 of the results from that race and other notables just because. Alex Palou won, Will Power second, Christian Lundgaard third, Scott Dixon fourth, Marcus Armstrong fifth, Scott McLaughlin sixth, Colton Herta seventh, Alex Rossi eighth, Graham Rahal ninth, Felix Rosenquist 10th. Pato Award, we mentioned him earlier, he finished 13th. Kiffin Simpson started 25th, finished 15th. Great run for him. Joseph Newgarden started 4th, finished 17th. Not a good day for him. Theo Pourchaire started 18th, finished 19th. Not a bad day for him. Rinus VK started 12th, finished 26th. Not a good day for Rinus. And Santino Ferrucci was the only real retirement of the race. He has a brake bias issues where it was causing the brake bias to shift more rearward in the car. So that did not bode well for him. He was also kind of driving elbows out during warm up and during the first bit of the race. Um, hey, it got people talking. So who am I to criticize on it? But yeah, that was the Indy Grand Prix, the Sancio Grand Prix. Got to get the sponsor name right on that. And it was 85 laps. Palou led a bunch of them and staved off all challengers at the end. And now we're coming up to the 108th Indianapolis 500. Just a few days of practice before 2 days of qualifying. We're not going to go over the format of qualifying because, quite frankly, we don't have that much time left in the episode to do that. But what we can tell you is that there will be a Fast 12 shootout to eliminate 6 cars to go down to 6 cars to do one last run to set up the first 2 rows of the grid. There will also be a final row shootout where 4 cars will go for 3 positions. 1 car is going home. I made a pick of Nolan Siegel. Kyle, who do you think is going home?
Siegel's
Putting
fast.
you on the spot.
I know he's quick. He's certainly. I think his age will be a factor. He did the rookie orientation, passed that with flying colors. Um, but you never know. It's really hard to kind of predict. I mean, last year I would never have bet that Graham Rahal would have been the odd man out, especially with all the time and energy and effort every team puts into this, but also all the laps he's run at the Speedway. They were just off last year, so you could go Siegel given his youth, but then again, he also doesn't know what he doesn't know. So I would expect full send from that young man if Coyne brings a car that is fast. Certainly could see that. Dreyer, Reinbold, Ari Connor Daly both run well there. I see them kind of being towards the back third of the grid. And there's probably 3 or 4 cars where, you've got to be above 225 to make it in the show. And if you're just a little bit off with these one-off entries, you're on the outside looking in. I think Siegel's a safe bet though.
Well, you mentioned 225. Jack Harvey made the race last year at 229.2. It was like a 4 mile per hour or 6 mile an hour spread between Pillow and Jack Harvey, who had qualified 33rd, but then started 32nd after a issue or after a practice accident with Stefan Wilson. We've got a couple of minutes to go here, but I'm just going to throw out a wild question here. We both know it's not going to happen. We both know that if this were to happen, that we should get lottery tickets. Can you imagine somehow, some way, what would happen if Kyle Larson was the car that went home?
Well, wouldn't be the first time a famous driver in a McLaren Indy 500 entry had issues. Although I'm fairly sure they've figured out their correct shade of papaya orange and have a steering wheel this time around.
Yes.
That's one of those stories that if you told someone in 20 years, you're never going to believe what happened to Fernando Alonso. They wouldn't believe you because it's just the series of things that went wrong. If he has an issue, stuffs it in the fence, has to get in that last four shootout. It could. I think that would be a huge detriment to the race and the series. But then again, that's the mystique of the Indy 500. The fastest 33 get in the field. Doesn't matter if you're Graham Rahal, Bob Rahal, Penske. Al Jr.'s missed the race. It'd be a bit of a rite of passage for Kyle Larson, I think. Real quick, before we wrap up, because Zoom's giving me the warning signs here, I think Pillow is certainly going to be a strong contender to win. He basically had the thing won a couple of years ago and got outmaneuvered. I think he's probably learned a lot from that. Who's your pick?
I think Pato.
I think so. I think he's certainly shown that he can run fast and run well there. And the window on this is closing. The window over Terre Haute is closed for the day at IMS. There we go. So that happened to me once before when I was a professional broadcaster. Our producer at the time had miscounted, which is hilarious because in local news you've got an automated rundown system and it tells you how much time you have left at the bottom of the show. Didn't pay any attention to it. Told us we had about 3 minutes left in the show. And so we're just chit-chatting, trying to stretch and fill time because we were out of news at that point. And then all of a sudden, I just hear commercial music playing in my ear, like mid-conversation with a meteorologist. So not the first time that's happened. Zoom, you need a better countdown system in place. So where were we? Pato. Your pick is Pato.
Yes. Pato is going to be my pick for the 500. I think that Arrow McLaren will get some things figured out. Will they get everything figured out? Probably not. But if you get everything about 99% right, I think he can do it. I don't think Colton Herta or Marco Andretti are going to have good days because the only day that Colton Herta has had at IMS that was any good was in 2020. And Marco, well, I'm sorry, but Marco just has not had it at IMS for quite a while. But yeah, Pato I think is going to be my pick to win for now. Of course, if you ask me on Thursday or Friday, that might change depending on how his car is in practice.
Yeah, completely unscientific process just there by both of us, based on previous efforts by these drivers. Very curious to see the timing sheet. I'm excited to see Kyle Larson in the car. He's a huge talent. It'll get some new eyeballs on the race, I think. Some of the dirt community who follows him around, they'll probably tune in. And the fact that he's doing the double, which hasn't been done since Tony Stewart, way back when. I've actually got that one of the cars on my
Kurt,
shelf from that.
Kurt Busch.
Did he? Oh, that's right. He did.
2014. The first
He
time I
did
covered
do.
the 500 in 2014, he finished sixth in the 500.
He had a shot. He had a shot when Penske used to kind of run that star car. That's boy, I forgot that he was still in he was in NASCAR too then when he had that opportunity.
For
So
what
but
it's
it's been
worth,
a decade.
for what it's worth, I went to random.org and did the true random number generator. The first number that it came up with that is actually on an Indy 500 entrant, 45, Christian Lundgaard.
Entirely possible. He is very fast. He is very fast. But as we all know, IMS picks the winner. The lady will determine who crosses the yard of bricks first on Memorial Day Sunday. So remains to be seen, but a lot of cars on track between now and then. We'll be back with another episode of the Overcut to dissect practice. Hopefully tomorrow, if there's practice and things happen. There's lots to see. Oh, by the way, Jimmy Johnson also doing the double. He was announced he's doing the Indy 500 broadcast for NBC, and then leaving the TV compound and broadcast booth, and getting on a plane and flying to Charlotte to run the Coke 600 at a place that he has owned for the bulk of his career. I know there was a
He won't
joke
need
way
an
back
IV
when they
though.
should name. Probably not. That man is in ridiculous shape. But will be good to have Jimmy's insight. Rookie of the year a couple years ago, led some laps. If things had panned out, and that would have been an amazing story, if the right sequence of events had followed when he was leading, he could have won that race. So would have been something. He would have been in very. He's in rarefied air anyway, being a
Yes.
7-time Cup champion. And all the other accolades he has in motorsports, but he would have joined a very, very small group of racers who have won both the Indy 500 and the Daytona 500. So all hopes resting on Kyle Larson to do that and then go win Daytona, although he's got terrible luck at super speedways. But boy, wouldn't that be a story? I don't think he wins his rookie year. I don't see it.
I
Stranger things have been known
I
to
ha
happen.
I haven't pinned for around seventh or eighth place.
I think that would be a solid day. He's got to, keep his nose clean, finish. But it would be something, the logistics of that, because the pomp and circumstance and all the things you have to do as the Indy 500 champion. But his day job is also happening. That night, I imagine he'll be getting a helicopter. He'll be landing on the front stretch there at Charlotte Motor Speedway to hop in his car. Even if he's on the podium, that'll delay things there a bit. So fun, lots of fun to be had. So hey, we
Well, we have
appreciate you all tuning in. Couldn't do this without you. Chris, a pleasure, my friend. As always, I'm jealous that you were at IMS and I am here in Tennessee watching from home. But yeah, we'll chat again. Thanks for watching, everybody. We will see you next time.